For 40 years, we've been told the biggest thing in Long Beach is the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Conveniently ignoring the Port of Long Beach with its big ships, big containers, and those big cranes to unload them, one of the biggest shipping facilities on the planet. But the Long Beach Grand Prix is big, with Verizon IndyCar and Indy Lights, Pirelli World Challenge, and IMSA racing this year their prototypes and GTLM cars, part of the Tequila Patron Endurance something or other. But what better way to look at Long Beach than to meet with one of the drivers that has experience in two of those three capabilities, IndyCar and the Daytona Prototypes. Justin Wilson came from F1 experience with Minardi and Jaguar, raced in IndyCar, Champ Car, Kart, whatever it was called, won more than a few races, was up front in the championship more than a few times, and actually won the 24 Hours of Daytona with Mike Shank in the Daytona Prototype. So he's going to give us a look inside what it takes to be quick here at Long Beach, to be quick in IndyCar, and to be quick in prototypes. It is the day before the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach 2014. I thought the best way to take a look at it is maybe to have some time with Justin Wilson. Today, IndyCar is racing Pirelli World Challenge and the IMSA series, and two of those three you race and have won. We'll talk about that. But thank you for the time to take an inside look.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming out, and hopefully try and explain a little bit of what I do and why I do it.
Well, and I think there's some fascinating things behind the scenes. We're going to take a track walk a little later, get some of those nuances. But let's start with the fact that, well, first of all, this is before the race. So either congratulations on a great job, sorry to see what happened, or WTF, were you thinking? No, forget it.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully not the third. Ideally the first. You know, I finished second here back in Champ Car. I was third last year, having started 23rd. So I'm hoping this year we made it a little bit easier on ourselves and we can start close to the front and run close to the front.
Well, I was just going to pile on the accolades, but yes, you've been good here at Long Beach. But I feel like you're the guy I should go to if I want to have a first-time win. You've brought the first win for Dale Coyne Racing here, Boy Scouts. You brought the first win to Roo Sport when you raced Champ Car, IndyCar, whatever they called it back then.
Yeah, whatever that was.
Jeremy Dale, our buddy, and all that stuff. You brought the first, or were part of the team that brought the first win, the Daytona 24, to Mike Shank Racing, his Daytona Prototype. So if I need a first of something, like a good show, I come to you, right?
I don't know about that. I mean, it was just... it's pretty cool to have actually raced in all those cars and been part of those teams. Winning the 24 was pretty special, and but also getting Dale's first win after 25 years was a really cool day. It was one of those days when the car was fantastic. I still think back to how well that drove. We had to save fuel the entire race because we had a fuel issue problem. We couldn't get a full amount of fuel in the tank. So not many people know that, but it was 22 gallons. We could only get 19 and a half in each pit stop. So that made for an interesting day, but the car was that good, you know, it worked out.
But that goes to the point where it's not just drive the car. You end up finding yourself being an integral part of the team, working with the engineer, working with the entire team to give you the right hand tool to get the job done, leading the witness, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's all about how the team works as a whole, and the driver's part of that. So we've got the same car, the same engine, the same tires, so it's very much down to how you can get the most out of what you have. So how you work with your engineers, how you work with your crew guys, makes a big deal. You know, we're talking fractions of a second, you know, tenths, hundreds, even thousands of a second.
This is not a spec series, although a lot of people want to call it that. There are some limitations to what you can do. What do you find yourself focusing on to make this car perform?
Doing the basics right. So you're trying to get the right springs, the right spring package, get the shocks in the ballpark, toes, cambers, just the alignment. It's all the basic stuff, but it makes a big difference.
Now, I'm not looking for the negative, and you're allowed to prove me wrong. I've made the comment that the car still has a balance challenge. Is there something still there that needs to be?
Yeah, this car has always been that way. The weight distribution is very rearwards. So we're always trying to fight that and find ways of helping the front grip without taking away from the rear. You can quite easily switch it and put more grip on the front by reducing the rear grip, but you want to add instead of just move. And that's the tricky part, because there's a lot of weight at the back of the car, so once you start it sliding, it doesn't stop sliding. And it's the big pendulum effect, and it wants to rotate through the corner, you can't get out onto the straight. So as a driver, we always want it to rotate in the middle of the corner, but you want it to stop rotating when it's time to go forwards. With this car, that won't happen. It takes a lot of patience to get through the middle to not slide the rear on exit. You're on that knife edge the entire lap. I mean, qualifying, you'll hardly breathe because you're trying not to aggravate the car or lose that grip at any point.
So now you're racing two cars, the Daytona Prototype, the Ford EcoBoost. Now that's turbo. Do these things run as turbos the same way? Is technology, or is there a difference?
It's very similar. I mean, that's a production-based engine, whereas that's the Ford EcoBoost engine. The Honda is a purpose-built race engine, both V6 twin turbos. I think they use pretty much the same turbo, and they drive very similar. I mean, you can tell the difference between the lighter parts in the Honda because it's designed and purpose-built. But otherwise, it's very similar. The way the boost pressure builds, it's all down to how well the engine tuners at the racetrack have mapped it and got the most out of it. So it builds progressive, because as a race driver, you want to come out the corner and jump on the throttle, but you don't want it to die and then build too fast and just light up the rear tires and burn them off.
Save me from this sounding like a really stupid question. How do these cars drive differently? How do you drive them differently? A DP versus this thing, the IndyCar.
You drive them both as hard as you can. The DP car, you can't push it quite as much. It doesn't have the downforce. The IndyCar has a lot of downforce. So you go into a corner, you brake hard and late, and get off the brakes earlier and let the downforce take you into the corner. The DP car, you've got to manage that all the way into the apex because it doesn't have that level of grip. So you drive it a bit more like a sedan, and you're braking, try not to spike the brake pressure too much. You're trying to get off it a little bit later because you want to keep the weight on the nose going into the corner.
Now there's always these perceptions of Daytona prototypes, and the car has continually evolved. Where does Justin fit in terms of developing to make that platform work? And since you developed the new EcoBoost, how did he play a role in all that?
I mean, think about this. So he was around when they developed the new Honda, single turbo and twin turbo now. And he knows, to this twin turbo, to my EcoBoost twin turbo, he knows good, bad, and ugly. Okay, he can tell me all stages and where we're at relative to his other things. So to me, from a drivability standpoint and that type of thing, I think adds tremendous value to it. I just love having him around from that. My engineers can appreciate that. The Roush Yates guy that do our motor program can rely on that information. We can take it to the bank, we can take it to the shaker, whatever we're working on, whatever Justin has his hands on, it's probably got 98% perfection rate that if we do it, it'll be better.
And just to nuance that one more, is it accuracy of qualitative information, or does he kind of jump into the head of the engineer and help that way?
I would say yes. Okay, he does a little bit. He's done so much and driven so many things. He can remember a camber change on a car that it reacted this way. Do you think we should try it here? And can you change the rates of the front rockers here? And we can't do it, Justin. Okay, well, I just remember once we did that when I was with another team, and he brings all that to the table. He doesn't hold any of it back, doesn't give away secrets necessarily, but will always try to guide the team in the best direction. The last thing I'll say about him, which I think is fantastic, this is a dollar word here. He has the most spatial awareness of any driver I know. He knows where his left front corner is relative to his right front and whoever's around him than anyone I've ever seen. I've seen him in some tight messes, and he can get out of it in one piece.
And having said that, you're right. You've got the windshield, you've got the mirrors, but you can't see a lot. So being aware of that.
He's just got this extra gear in there that he kind of can know where he can get away with. Now, it not always doesn't work. I mean, we've gotten in some trouble with him too, but I mean, that's fine.
But not for lack of trying.
Not for, I never get in my guy's face at all about for trying.
So you also had an F1 history. I don't know what that was. It good or bad, that experience?
I'm glad I did it.
Yes.
I mean, as I was growing up, Formula One was always the aim, and that's what I was working towards. Once you got there, there's a lot of stress. Driving the car was just the tip of the iceberg that was involved in that whole industry. So I've enjoyed my time in IndyCar ever since. It's a bit like going back to racing go-karts when you were a kid. You're at the racetrack, you're having fun, you're enjoying it, The difference is now in IndyCar, the cars are a lot faster than the go-kart. So, it's that same type of mentality.
Is there anything from your driving experience in those F1 cars, Jaguar, if I recall?
Yeah.
Maybe Minardi?
Minardi for 11 races and a Jaguar for 5. So it's
anything transferred from that to what you're doing now? I mean, other than just basic knowledge?
Not really.
Okay.
It's very different. Back then we were on groove tires, so the car moved around a lot in the slow corners. It was a little frustrating. It's like driving on rain tires in an Indy car on the dry track. It's doesn't corner too well, but it goes in a straight line very well.
So now I'm going to ask the question: the F1 experience you had versus what you see with this new F1 experience. What are we talking about?
It's like a video game.
Really?
Now they're on a slick tire, and the cars have got slightly less power, but they dart around because they got the same weight. So you brake later because you're going a little bit slower. So it looks like a video game. And then they're playing on the steering wheel, changing all the settings that they can do from inside the car. When to turn the curves on and off, and messing with the brake bias and everything else that goes with it. It's interesting. You got to admire how they can get all that done on those straights. There's a lot of information to process and still drive the race car.
I'm constantly this person that's ranting on. Everyone thinks it's just grab the wheel as tight as you can and drive. There's so much mental and physical gymnastics going on to make this car.
That's the big thing. I mean, I remember that in Formula One particularly because everything was happening so fast. Yeah. You're trying to absorb that information, process it, and do something about it in this short amount of time you're on the straight. So it's a busy place inside the cockpit. It's a similar kind of thing for us. We got a lot to deal with trying to manage the car on the track. We don't have the same electronics and gizmos, but we're still trying to work out how to make it go faster. And our brake zones are pretty short as it is. Big, heavy car, we get it stopped pretty good.
Where does this place rank in terms of things you want to accomplish?
Number 2.
Really?
Well, as far as race wins, I go Indianapolis and here. This is number 2. Obviously I want to win the championship as well, but that's kind of...
Well, we talked about that earlier. You've been close repeatedly. 3rd, 2nd, chomping at the bit.
Yeah, we've been close. Never got the win here, so... 2008, the last race with Champ Car, it was actually a standing start the first time we did that. And started on pole, was quick all weekend. And even though I dropped to 2nd at the start, I was pretty comfortable and thought, okay, we've got this, getting good fuel mileage, car feels good, just be patient. And I think it was like the 3rd lap into the race, 4th lap into the race, I noticed the fuel mileage start to drop and drop and drop. And and every lap I did, and by the 6th lap the engine blew up. So that was the one that one hurt, because there's nothing for certain, but that was we had the quickest car that day. But
so we're riding around Long Beach track. We're here at turn 1, and the question becomes, where are the key places to race this place well and to get a lap? And everyone seems to want to talk about the hairpin.
Yeah.
This seems to be a festival of congestion and challenge.
It's a big one because we're doing 180 miles an hour, maybe more, 185 coming down into here. So you're really getting on. Big brake zone. The track seems wide, so it's very inviting to try and get that pass done. So if you got off the last corner well, you're trying to get down the inside here. And the guy ahead knows it as well. So he's pushing it as late as he can. And it funnels down. So it's nice and wide here. But as we get around the corner, the natural line ends up off in the tires, which you're hoping is not you.
Now, you cannot use the yellow line to the right?
No, you got to keep it on the racing surface, which is considered from the yellow line this way, so they don't want you touching that yellow line. And to reinforce that, they put these little, we call them fried eggs, down on the ground to try and stop. It unsettles the car in the braking and stops you going too far out that way.
Now, in my old days, we used to go right.
Yep.
But I remember this brake zone is not exactly smooth.
No.
Are you looking for a smooth area, or is it still a little ruffle?
It's still choppy.
Yeah.
It's not too bad these days, and the suspension on the car does a good job of absorbing it. But yeah, you feel the front starting to bounce slightly. And the key as well, having a car that turns in well. So if you can get in here, brake, and then start to release the brakes and turn in, and the car turns instead of washing out, you've got a pretty good race car.
Now, I work really hard at sounding like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to put that away and say, do you want the car at Long Beach to be like on the nose, or you want to feel it rotating under your ass? Where do you like it to be?
I want it to rotate through the middle of the corner. If I can not do anything with the pedals through the middle and I can just steer the car, then I can get my hands straighter for those, exits and jump on the gas pedal, and you get much better shot off the corner. If you're trying to coax the car through the middle and you're hanging onto the steering and then trying to squeeze the power on, your power down is never going to be good.
Yeah.
And that just delays everything. So it's whoever can get to full throttle earliest and brake latest is usually quick here.
So last question about this corner. Is this a place where you can, I'm going to use the word intimidate competition, and get here side by side through the corner, or does it all have to get done in the brake zone and then it's just, oh my God, you're hanging out if you try to do anything else?
If you're not wheel to wheel by the time you start to turn in, which is about where we are now, then it's tough. You've really got to get axle to axle so you can turn in and make it the guy on the outside's job to get out the way. If you're coming up and you're not quite there, it's one of those corners where you kind of get phased out or squeezed out as you're getting into that apex, and he can roll more speed in with a wider line. So you really got to get there to make it his job to get out of the way.
And how do you race? You can't see anything. Do you imagine the rest of the arc, or is it literally just trusting that car position here and I know I'll be good?
Muscle memory and trusting. If I turn in from here and I can see that apex at this point, you start to turn in, and as long as it doesn't slide too much, I'm going to end up exactly where I want to.
Okay, not to suck up all the time, shall we progress?
Okay, well, let's move on.
So, is this a place where you ride berms or not?
Yep, you get halfway up that curb, try and open up this exit, and as you're coming out of it, you're back on the power, and the car's drifting out towards this wall, which is
second gear.
Second gear.
Yeah.
Just before the Prix bridge, you're up to third.
Now, is there any room to do anything here before we get to the fountain, or
no? It's so tempting because sometimes something happens back there, and you think, okay, I've got this run, but the wall comes back in on the left, and it'll just gather into a big mess. It's a funnel.
So do I need to be heading toward that yellow Motegi?
Yep. Okay. You want an apex just on the yellow Motegi sign, and it's almost a straight line. It's not quite, but almost.
Is this a brake spot?
Yeah. So big brake down into first gear.
First.
This is the fountain. Another famous corner of the track. It always looks great, but it's kind of strange. In the middle of a racetrack, we've got this garden. But it's a great part of the track, and it's a nice radius on it, so the car flows through here pretty good.
Are you trying to be late, or you just kind of roll through here?
Trying to brake late in, do all the turn in the middle, and quickly get out on the gas.
Okay.
So it's a very much a V-shaped corner, as we call it. So brake in as late as you can. Don't care too much about the apex speed, but you want to be on the power early, getting out.
Okay, this may sound really stupid. So here we are, this part of it, the fountain, we've got a right-hand corner coming up. How far ahead of the track are you thinking where you want to set up for the next either move or gap that you want to create?
Well, from here, you're thinking about the next corner.
Okay.
So it's all about car position. You're trying to carry more momentum, more speed, but it's car position. So we'll get as close to this wall here on the left as we can. Try not to track out too far so that we can get a good line into turn 4. And turn 4 is tough because I would say normally it's a minimum speed and exit shot, but the entry is just as important. So you need all three in that corner. You can't afford to give one up over the other. There's no compromise anywhere.
So this is an important corner 4 coming up. Let's take a look at it.
Yeah.
On the berm or off the berm?
As Mario Andretti goes around the outside of us there. And try not to let that happen too often.
No Andrettis go by.
No more Andrettis for this weekend, please.
I didn't realize how much downhill this was.
Yeah, it's downhill. This wall feels like it sucks you in. And it's constantly turning, so if you get up close to the wall, you can't get off it either. It's constantly trying to suck you in there.
So to free up a car, where does that happen? Corner exit, or literally do you set it up with corner entry to make sure the car is free coming out? Little of both?
A little of both. It's what you're playing about with the setup, is trying to get it so the car is is good on entry, middle and exit. You want it to be free, but you need good power down on a street circuit.
This is turn 5?
This is turn 5.
Why does this look like a complete cluster with uphill and these berms and
Yeah.
ripples?
It's a tough corner. I think.
We having a debate?
Yeah.
What are we debating?
We're debating on position of the yellow, what we call bread loaves.
Okay.
So yeah, these yellow things were put in to stop people cutting the corner, but still giving you line of sight.
Yeah.
Last year, people were jumping over them,
Yeah.
so they've extended them, made them come further around the corner, so you'd have to hit them a second time if you came over them. So it's just checking them out. I think they're in a good spot. It'll make the corner interesting.
Will you touch the rear tire to hop the car, or is it
Well,
a place where you shouldn't do that?
I mean, last year we had all 4 tires over that. It was, Dukes of Hazzard. We just hit them and launch over. And if you hit them right, because you're going uphill at that point,
Yeah.
you'd land on this downhill, like a mini motocross ramp to ramp. You get it just right. It feels good, and you get good power down then out the corner. You got it wrong, you'd bounce and hit the wall.
So this Long Beach track, even though it has these long straightaways and these sweeping corners, do you set the car up stiff or compliant?
And that's one of those debates. Every year we come back here, last year we were stiff, this year we're soft, next year we'll probably be stiff again. We alternate, trying to find that compromise between grip and stability. And on this track, I think they all produce about the same result. It's the same with downforce level. You've got these long straights, but it's a street circuit, so you've got big brake zones. So which is better, more downforce to get the braking and get through those corners, or trim it all out for the long straights? And again, every year we kind of flip-flop one way or the other, because we think the previous way was better than what we had this time.
Do you change your thinking where you qualify in the race, or is there enough distance where...
Yeah, I don't know. I would say the further back you are, last year we qualified at the back because we didn't get to run in qualifying. So we didn't qualify the car, so we started at the back and we trimmed out a lot, and it seemed pretty quick. But my notes said maybe we were trimmed too much because I couldn't get the car to stop. So that goes back to my backwards and forwards dilemma. But I think the further back you are, the more chances you'll take because you've got less to lose.
How can you calculate, or at least estimate a sense of how much wing will give you how much shorter braking distance? Like if I put in X degrees, I'm going to cut 5 feet, 10 feet off my braking distance.
We just look at lap time.
Okay.
So we have it set out, we get a sheet and we work out this much downforce this is our base downforce, and if we take downforce out, we're going to go this much slower. So for 2 degrees, we're going to lose a tenth. For 3 degrees, we're going to lose a tenth and a half. And look at that slope and see if it's dropping off a cliff or it's flattening out, and maybe there's a sweet spot in there where you can take out 5 degrees and only lose 2.5 tenths of it over a lap, but you're going to gain 5 miles an hour down the straight. So you're trying to compromise that.
Do you break up the lap and look at segments like, okay, it's going to be quicker in this part and that matters? Like, I'm going to ask you a question about, is there a passing zone down here? Do you look at it that way, or is it just overall and I'm going to manage it as the driver, racer?
Usually it's global, but we'll have those thoughts.
Okay.
So you'll think, okay, if I carry a bit more downforce, I can carry speed through here and I can pass down there. But typically when you're looking at it before a race, you're thinking, okay, what's the global scheme of things? I can pass on the front straight if I've got less downforce.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
So we've been talking to you and ignoring Mario Andretti over here. Mario's been giving advice. Is that an official capacity, or is he just sticking his Italian beak in there?
It's non-official,
Okay.
but with a man of his experience, I think everyone always listens. So.
And the guy in white is our race director, Bo Barfield.
Yep. And
So this is an official conversation.
yeah, everyone's trying to work this out and see what it's going to be like. It's over the years, Long Beach has actually had some big changes, but from year to year, they just keep tweaking it very small amounts. So we pay attention to those changes.
And so I dragged you through a ton of discussion about Turn 5 Because I'm getting the sense that if you launch off that, there's a great brake zone, passing zone down here. Is that true?
It's very tempting, but the hardest part of this corner is you kind of get squeezed out on the entry. The wall on the inside goes straight, and the line is to apex up the wall very early in the corner. So you have to be fully alongside when you hit the brakes. Short brake zone as well, because we brake about the 2 marker.
Oh, wow.
So there's not a lot of room to get the car stopped. So if you're coming from a car length back, you've got a lot of work to do before you get to the wall.
Well,
just so that the guy on the outside knows that you're there.
Well, and to your point, you're right, it funnels in, so he's going to start turning, he or she's going to start turning in.
Yeah.
There's room on the exit, so if you're not there, more carnage.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost from the point you hit the brakes, you start to turn in. So you've got to be very committed if you're going to make that pass.
As we head out to this, we're going to head toward one more corner toward the back straightaway. Is there time to be made on this uphill?
Yes. Yeah.
So giving it all up here, trying to make a pass.
It means they'll pass you back on the next straight. It's the classic over-under. You know, if you go down the inside, you're going to overshoot, they'll going to undershoot, get the better shot out, and get you back at the next corner.
All right, well, we're getting around to the end. Where's the last part of this track that matters? And we'll head there.
Turn 10, 9, 10, 11.
Let's go there.
We'll head that way.
Without sounding Pollyanna, what really has to happen for you to kind of connect with the engineer? How do you make that work? Because you've seemed to make it work with a lot of people.
It's just understanding each other, really. And he's been around the sport for a long time, engineering for a long time.
Cannon, first name?
Michael.
Michael Cannon.
Yeah. So he's just got a lot of experience. And then, you know, it's just how you connect. I don't know what that boils down to, whether he's good at listening to what I'm saying and he understands what I'm asking for.
So do you speak driver or do you speak engineer and he translates? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I try and do a bit of engineer.
Okay.
And he also has been around it long enough that he speaks enough driver, you know, so he gets some of the limitations, you know, why you brake in a certain spot or why you don't turn in with more speed. You know, some engineers don't get that. So, well, just brake later and carry more speed in. Well, I would do, but the back of the car is trying to overtake the front of the car and it doesn't feel very nice.
You give feedback during the session like you do on the radio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we talk on the radio. And we've both experienced a lot of similar things over the last 10 years of competing against each other. Now we're working with each other and it's like, well, do you remember that time at Toronto back in 2010? And you know, we were quick because we had this on the car. So, well, that's interesting because we had that as well. And you just line those certain points up and you start to understand, okay, what makes a race car fast?
So don't trade the secret, but is there a progression of how you approach the debrief? For example, is it Q&A or you focus on 3 or 4 key things up front? Is there a process that you use that's consistent for every debrief?
For me, I pick out where I'm losing the most time, or you know, for me it translates to what's giving me the biggest problem. Is it my power down? Is it my braking? Or is it just understeer? Is it oversteer? You know, as soon as I turn in, the back starts to slide. I can't get on the power. I can't carry the speed in. So I try and pick out, because you don't get a lot of time. So you've got to be very concise, very deliberate. And you know, a couple of times I've come in and I started mentioning a couple of other items, and you hear them start to talk amongst themselves, saying, "Oh, well, let's fix that problem." It's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not. I'm saying it. I'm just trying to give you some color, but my biggest problem is this, and that was a good lesson for myself, or a good reminder. Is okay. Let's give them the main problem first. Let's tackle the biggest problem first, and then, you know, we can fine-tune some of that niceties, the details later on.
So you're good at the entirety of the sport, but everything is really communication.
It is. It's how you communicate with people, interact with people. We've all got the same car. We've all got the same tires. There's 2 engines now, Honda and Chevy, but they're very, very equal. So it's how people work together and trying to get the most out of everybody so that you can be that half a tenth quicker.
So we're on the part of the track where there's all this drift rubber. from the event they had before.
Yeah.
Compounds sometimes match up. Heat has a factor. Does this work for you or work against you?
In the past, last year, I felt it helped, and this corner was extremely grippy. I mean, you got to the point where you're coming in here and it almost feels like the car's going to bicycle. It's got that much grip as you're going through this corner. So I think it helps. The difference being is sometimes they use slightly different lines. So as they go off that line that you're trying to use and then you cross it, the grip goes away and comes back, and obviously you hit it with one end of the car before the other, so it can cause you some unbalance.
Is that fourth gear back here?
No, this corner is second gear.
Second.
We approach it in, I think, fifth or sixth, depending on how you've geared it, and down to second, but it's a long second gear because it's fast.
Now, I've lost track of the car number.
That's
corner
9.
numbers. That's 9. So
Yeah.
here we are in the part you think, you tell me matters.
This section, the last 3 corners, really makes a difference because you want to carry good speed through 9.
Mm-hmm.
So you track out almost to the wall. Depends what everyone else is doing. If no one's tracking out to the wall, you don't go there because you want to stay on the rubber.
Okay.
That's the other part of that street racing. You can have this idealistic line that's better than anyone's, but if no one else is using it, by the end of the weekend, it's a second slower.
I kind of remember it was tire grip, bumps, manhole covers,
Yeah.
using the berms, and that would affect the line I'd choose.
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got it. But like I said, you got to use what everyone else is using. If people are turning from, this next corner from the inside, by the end of the weekend, you got to turn in from the inside because that's where all the grip is.
Now here's where we're not going to get into a debate of driving styles, but you just touched on it. Coming out of here, this corner, this next sweeper matters. Where's track position? You want to be middle of the track? How do you approach this?
I prefer to be in the middle.
Okay.
I think, when I first started watching IndyCar back in the early 90s, Nigel Mansell would track out of this corner on the left and just drive up there on the inside. And it's like, wow, this is an interesting line, but he made it work. Whereas I like the middle. Some guys go all the way back to the right, but I think you give up too much time through 9 here trying to get back to the right because it's a short straight. So I like the middle. It seems a good compromise of trying to get all 3 corners quick.
And to your point, you gear it, so this is all second gear?
Yep. Second gear, just brush the limiter for me going underneath the Firestone bridge. And that way you don't have to brake too hard because you don't want to transfer too much load to the front axle to get through turn 10.
Braking, passing zone back there.
It's a good passing zone, but again, because it's so fast now, you turn in early. So you got to make sure that you're there before you hit the brake pedal.
So I'm not leading the witness, so do people try to get smart and think they can make a pass here?
Some people do. It rarely works.
Okay.
You need a good stack up, the accordion effect to happen with 2 or 3 cars, and then the guy behind can have a go at it. But it's a pretty low percentage move. It's maybe the last lap you might do it, but really you think, well, if you're that good, you probably want to save it and try and just get the easy pass down into turn 1. We'll go and check out the most famous corner on this track, turn 11, the hairpin.
So apex?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I try and just keep this as tight as I can.
Okay.
You see the drift guys are right out against the wall,
Yeah.
but I never find that to work with the IndyCar, so I'm concentrating on trying to get into here.
Again, a little bit of uphill. Do you use it?
Just
Not really.
Not really. It's a tiny little bit. But then you're trying to just carry this. You want to brake late, carry the speed in, but you want the car to roll through the middle.
So I see flat at the middle.
Yes.
Are we trying to get to here and then finish, or is it late apex out? How do you look at it?
Try and make a late apex.
Okay.
So you'll miss the first apex wall by, probably the width of that paint on the ground.
Wow.
But then you want to get close to the second wall. But you never want to get too close, because you get too close, you start panicking about your rear wheel clipping the wall, and then you're hesitating. And any hesitation is lap time. So you think, well, I'm best to miss it by a foot, and then not hesitate and just jump on the power.
Is this late break up here, or are you just kind of getting it done early to get the car set up for the launch?
You work it backwards from the exit out. So the key is getting the launch. From then, it's trying to get in as deep as you can without compromising your exit. And then that dictates the corner before, how fast you can go, how wide, how much speed you can carry. So you work this whole section from turn 11 all the way back to turn 9, and that dictates where you brake into 9.
Well, I'm smiling because I know the fans are going to love all this. And where the hell were you when I was racing? This is good shit. Thank you.
No problem, thank you.